Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to MIX. Welcome to Vegas. My name is Paul Stubbs. I'm a senior technical evangelist at Microsoft in DPE organization, which is the developer platform and evangelist organization. Today, what we're really going to talk about is how to design SharePoint sites. And it's a really common thing. We think about some of the functionality of SharePoint, but we're really going to dig into the design side of SharePoint. How many people here are designers or consider themselves designers? Maybe half. And developers? How many people are both? Good. How many people have done SharePoint development before? That's a pretty good number. SharePoint 2010 development? Just a few? Good. So, one of the things that we think about is SharePoint is functional. It's a team collaboration site. It's a portal. It has our business applications. We can share our documents, and we can do workflows, and we can have Excel services. It's all about business. But really for designers, and really what we think about here at MIX, is how do we take SharePoint from a functional aspect to something fabulous, right? To something that is still SharePoint, but may be seen in a different way, or you may not have recognized as SharePoint. And so how do you as a designer create these type of experiences on SharePoint? And so we're going to walk through just one aspect of this and see what are some of the features and some of the things that we can do to make this happen. So some of the things I want to have us answer today is, what are my options? What can I customize? And how do I customize those things to get to that state that I want to be at? And as a designer, how do I get started with SharePoint? Many times we think of SharePoint in Visual Studio and developers, but the design aspect of SharePoint is really important. But how do you get started as a designer? You may not even know where to begin. And then finally, sort of the overriding theme of this is, how do I create consistent experiences? I think that's really the key as a designer, and as your SharePoint sites evolve, is how do you have a consistent experience across all of the pages of your site and across all of the applications that are in your site. And so I'm going to show you some techniques that are pretty new, and we've developed some things to make it a little bit easier as well. So this is SharePoint. SharePoint is a huge product. It's giant, enormous. The thing about SharePoint is that it's a great foundation for your applications. So there's all of this stuff with the data model and workflows and lists and libraries and all that sort of stuff underneath. But really what we want to do is we want to focus just on this one layer today. Just on this pages and user interface layer. Just this layer for designers doing things like master pages and page layout. Doing things with theming. Doing things with Silverlight and CSS. So this is the design layer that I'm really going to talk about today. So all the other stuff is great. Is anybody going to SharePoint Pro Conference? It's down at the Bellagio on Wednesday? No? If you want to see all of that other stuff, we're going to be talking about that from Wednesday through the rest of the week there. But right now we're just going to focus on the pages and user interface aspect. So how do I get started? Well, first of all, SharePoint 2010, you can install on Windows 7. So, which is great for designers. Most of you are probably running Windows 7 as your OS. So you can run this on Windows 7. Just install SharePoint directly on Windows 7. It does require you to have the 64-bit version of Windows 7 installed. It's really just for developers and designers. You're not going to run your production SharePoint sites off your Windows 7 machine, right? So you don't have to worry about that. There is some work to do in installing, so you have to follow the instructions in the SDK, which tells you how to tweak a few config files that will allow you to install on Windows 7. If you're an IT pro as an organization, you can also turn this off through group policy if you don't want your people doing this. But all of this is also available as a VHD ready to go, so all you have to do is download the virtual machine, and all of this Office, SharePoint, and Visual Studio stuff is already built for you. So that would be the fastest way to do that, and at the end I have some links to how to go do that. But that's the absolute fastest way. Download the VHD and you're up and running in a few instances. And in fact, I'm doing all of the work off the VHD myself, so all the demos and everything you see is using that VHD. So if you're a SharePoint developer, your tool of choice is most likely Visual Studio. And Visual Studio in 2010 for SharePoint is an enormous leap forward for developers of SharePoint. In the previous version, 2007, it was kind of a mismatch of tools and Codeplex and other things that were kind of piecemeal together. Now it's all built into Visual Studio as a first-class design surface. But with Visual Studio, we get broad support for all the features that are in SharePoint, all the things that we want to do, like creating WSPs and things like that, which are the SharePoint solution packages. But we're really not going to talk about Visual Studio too much today. We're going to focus on strictly the design aspect. And so if you're a designer, most likely you're going to be using SharePoint Designer. SharePoint Designer in the 2010 version is also vastly improved from where it came from. We'll use this pretty much throughout the whole demo, but you'll see it really has a great way to handle our master pages and our CSS files. It makes it very, very easy to do this. The other great thing about using SharePoint Designer is if you don't want to install SharePoint on your machine locally, using SharePoint Designer will allow you to build SharePoint applications remotely. In other words, if there is a SharePoint instance in your company, you can just point SharePoint Designer at that running instance on some other server and do all the things that you're going to see today. And the more important thing, I think, is the bottom piece here, which is projects that you do in SharePoint Designer are now migratable to Visual Studio, so that as a designer, you can work out the design and then hand that over to a developer who can then use Visual Studio to complete the work and continue on. So let's take a look here at what the default UI looks like and some basic demos. So if you haven't seen this before, this is the new SharePoint 2010 team site default page. It's kind of bland, and it doesn't offer a lot of the things and the design aspects that you think about, so this is where we're going to start with today. We can also see things like Visual Studio, and if I open Visual Studio, we can see that I have a number of project types available to me as a developer in Visual Studio. So these are really great, right? I can do visual web parts, I can create workflows and event receivers and all these things. But again, we're not going to do this today. I just want to show you as a developer, this is where you start. Everything that I do today in SharePoint Designer could also be done as a project in Visual Studio. So if you want to start from that aspect or you want to migrate from there, all of this can be done as well in Visual Studio. So for this, we'll close Visual Studio for now. So one of the things here about my site is that I can do things as a designer. So if I want to customize the look of my site, I can put the page in edit mode, and I see I now have ribbon support inside of Visual Studio. So once we have the ribbon support, all of these pages are wiki-based, so just like I can do normal wiki-based editing, I can come in here and change, the colors of the fonts, and I can add new text. And you can add this stuff directly. I can come over here to my images, and I can just easily resize my images directly on the page. So it makes it very easy to, as a casual designer, to get started designing your SharePoint sites from this aspect, right? So once we're done doing that, we can just save the page, and we now have our page saved. So let's talk about SharePoint Designer. So SharePoint Designer, again, is the design tool of choice for designing SharePoint applications. Now, what's much different in 2010 is we can see that it's organized based upon artifacts of SharePoint, not strictly on files. Now, I can still see all the files down here if I want to, but what I really want to do is be able to browse information about the site. So I can see my general information about the site. I can see the lists and libraries that are on my site. I can see workflows, pages, master pages, and external content types, which are a way to access external data on sites like ERP systems, Oracle, SQL, backend data systems. You can access those through your external content types. What we want to look at today really is this concept of our site pages. And here we have our site pages that we can see, and I have my home page. And the home page is the page that we were looking at here. This is my home.aspx page. So from within SharePoint Designer, I'm able to easily open that page in edit mode. And I can see in my split screen view, since this is a page layout, if you will, is a sort of like a nested master page almost. It's the page within the master page for the layout content. So you can see at the top there's no body tag or HTML of this page because SharePoint knows that it belongs inside of another master page. But what SharePoint Designer does for me is it brings that master page Chrome into my view here. So I can't edit the master page Chrome from here, but I can edit the content controls within that master page. So as I click through here on my master page, on my page layout, I can see the elements directly that I'm editing inside of here. And if I scroll down, I can even see that I have the XSLT list view control here, which is a view of my documents. But we can see in my view that it's showing me the actual rendering of that control. Whereas if I look at the actual HTML, all I see is just the definition of the web part. So we can see here that this definition of this web part is showing me just the properties of this web part. It's showing me which fields I'm going to use, and I'm showing me other information. That's it. It didn't actually show me here, but SharePoint Designer is smart enough to know to render that correctly. And what's nice about this is once I have this selected, I get context-sensitive information about this control so that I can actually change formatting and do other work without having to actually know much about XSLT at all. And in fact, I could even change and apply themes to my design. So if I want to change it to this boxed with no labels look, I simply click on that. It changes the web part for me, and it changes how the output will be rendered. So it becomes very easy for designers to create these page layouts using SharePoint Designer. So this next aspect I want to talk about is themes. So themes in SharePoint 2010 have been totally rewritten. And it's an amazing thing of what they've done with the themes now. But themes are a way to apply colors and fonts to your pages to have a consistent look and feel throughout your site, which really has the design goal, which is to have that consistency throughout all of your pages. And themes allow us to do that. Now, what's interesting about these theme files is that the themes now in SharePoint 2010 are based on the Office THMX files. So the standard Office themes that you use in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel are also used in SharePoint, right? So it becomes very easy to create these themes and to consume these themes within SharePoint. So let's take a look at this. So one of the things I can see here is I have my site. But I can easily go up here to my site actions, go to site settings, come here to site theme, and I can change my theme to any number of different themes that are available out of the box. So if we pick our berry theme here, we can see that we have a number of theme items and colors that are going to be mapped to things like accent 1, accent 2, background, dark 1 and 2, and a couple of fonts. So what I need to do is, all I need to do is click apply to now apply that theme. And what's happening in the background is that SharePoint is taking that theme file and converting it to CSS for us. That CSS will ultimately be used to render these pages. So what I have is that theme file is now is being used against this site, and we get this great, look and feel of the berry theme onto our team site, right? I didn't say I was a good designer. So we can see how easy that is to create these themes and have these themes apply to SharePoint. But it's equally easy to make these themes. And in fact, so here's the berry theme here that I have that I exported out of SharePoint. But also the MIX theme. This is the theme that they use to create the PowerPoint templates for all the MIX sessions. It's just a theme file. They didn't actually create a POTX file. They just created a theme file to be that template for PowerPoint. And I could easily take this theme file and import it into SharePoint and use the same colors and look and feel for my SharePoint site as I'm using for my PowerPoint sessions. And so once you have it in SharePoint, you can see that, I have some theme colors here. And these top colors are the theme colors that map to the themes you just saw down the side in SharePoint. These are the accent 1, 2, and 3 colors that you see. So we can also see that if we go back to the berry theme, this is a little bit plainer because it's not as filled out, but I still have those basic colors. Here's that great yellow color that's on the theme, right? And so these are the colors that are coming from the berry theme that you can do. And so as a designer, you can make these colors look what you want to look like, and then you just come over here to design, and you can easily save this, whatever the settings you've made, either in Word or PowerPoint, Excel, as a THMX theme file that you could then upload into SharePoint. So that's how easy it is to create themes and consume themes using PowerPoint, for example, and SharePoint. So let's go ahead and switch this back to the default theme, as great as the berry theme is. So all we do is to switch back to the default theme or no theme. You can see the colors that will be applied for the no theme. And we'll just set that, and we're back to our team site here. So one of the things we talked about, so theme colors is one thing, right? We can easily change a few of the colors, and we can change some of the fonts, and we can see how easy it is to apply those themes. But really, when you want to make a really fabulous page or something that looks visually different and organized in a much different way, then you're going to have to get into master page editing. And so master pages are really where we have a page, and the master page part is really the kind of the chrome or the structure of the page. This is where you'd add, maybe the footer and the header part of your page would become part of your master page. And then the center part would really become your page layout, which is what we saw in the first example with the home.aspx. That was the layout piece, and the master page around that page was framing that. So again, there are lots of pieces to the master page, including interactive pieces, dialogues, status bars, notifications, and things and such. But we really want to focus on the master page experience and how the page layout interacts with that master page experience. So really, when you're developing master pages, the sky's the limit. It's really anything you want to do or anything you can do can be done in the master page. And so you can make the layout of SharePoint be anything, as these examples show. If you go out to wssdemos.com, you can see hundreds of examples of really innovative page layouts that make SharePoint not look like SharePoint, which is really ultimately the goal, right, is to make it be something unique and make it be something that's branded for your organization. Excuse me. So again, we saw that SharePoint Designer is that tool for designing these pages, and it really is going to allow us to give a consistent story. And things about master pages also apply to our admin pages, which are different than in 2007. In 2007, there was a different kind of UI experience between what the user saw on the regular pages and what the administrators saw in the admin pages. Now you can have the master pages apply across admin pages as well as regular pages as well. Okay, so here we have our site. What we want to do is we want to take a look at some master pages. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here. Inside of the SharePoint site, we can set our master pages here by coming here and seeing our master page. So here, by default, we have the V4 master, which is set. We can easily change the master pages for the site, which is what the user sees, kind of the user pages. And again, the master pages for the system are the master page that applies to all the system pages or all the administration pages. So in this case, what we can do is if I change the night and day master here, and I say OK, this is going to apply a whole different master page onto our site. Let's see if this isn't installed yet. There we go. So you can see that that master page changed the site and changes the look and feel of the site in a kind of dramatic way. I have a master page that I've been working on here for Mix called the Mix master page. So let's go ahead and choose the Mix master page. And so here I have the Mix master page applied, but I haven't really made too many changes to it yet. It looks just like the default master, but I've switched over to a different master page, and I can see that master page here inside of SharePoint Designer. So let's close this. So if I look at my master pages here, here's my Mix master page. So let's go ahead and check this one out, and then we can right-click and choose Edit in Advanced Mode. So SharePoint Designer has downloaded my master page for me, and we can see that the master page has a number of items. So let's go back to the top here. We have some registrations that we use. Let's go back to the top. We can do everything. Again, this master page is the HTML page, so we see our HTML header. We see content placeholders. So now in SharePoint, the way the master pages work, there are dozens of these content placeholders. And this is the trick of doing master pages in SharePoint. Don't delete any of these. They're all required. They don't all have to be visible, but they all have to be on the page. And so I have a link at the end for a Start a Master Page, which has all the kind of boilerplate stuff you need to get started. But for when you're doing your master pages and when you get started, don't delete any content controls. Just make them hidden, like this one is here, for example. But what we can see is as we click around the page, we can see SharePoint Designer helps us figure out which control is being edited in the master page. And so SharePoint Designer makes it very easy to browse around for the type that we're looking for. And one of the things that I like to do is in the page, I like to press F12 and open up the developer tools for IE. And this is really interesting because what I can do is, if I click on the icon here, as I select elements, this will help me understand, like if I click on this one, it tells me the actual class name and the ID of that control. So sometimes looking at the code view or even in the SharePoint Designer view, it's challenging to find the right piece you're looking for. So this is kind of a tip that I use. It allows me to browse around and find just the element. Like if I click on this one, it shows me, the exact class that's being used. It shows me my CSS. So it becomes a very easy way to figure out which element you want to use as you're designing your master page. And so again, I have content here at the title that I can do. So if I want to edit my master page, so here's the space right here, which is my S4-ribbon row section. And this obviously is the top part where the ribbon expands and you get the ribbon, right? But what I want to do is above this, I want to add a banner ad. So what I'll do is I'll just comment this out here for this div tag, and then we can save this. And now we can see down here it's showing me my banner ad. So if I refresh the page, we can see that now I've edited the master page to show me this banner ad on every page, and that's how I've been able to easily update my master page. So that's kind of interesting, right? So one of the things I can do now is I can also apply custom CSS to my page. So in fact, what I have here is a link to a CSS file that I've been working on. I'll show you what it looks like before I show you the file. And the way we apply that CSS can be done in a couple of ways. I could either embed the link to the CSS file in my master page, or I can keep them loosely coupled and define the CSS file separately that should be applied to this master page. So here, when I have a separate CSS file, we can see that just by applying the CSS file, I get a total different look and feel for my site. So this is how I keep them. So I can switch out master page layout and keep that separate from the way my CSS file looks. And an administrator or somebody that's creating these team sites can easily create the look and feel with the correct logos and whatever they want to very easily as these two pieces are kept separate. So I still have my banner ad at the top. I have this great look and feel. This was created using that ThemeX file, so all the same logos and colors and stuff from the official MIX theme. We can see that I have this background here on this page. Maybe we can't. The background is an image background of those bubbles on the page. But if I want to take off the background because I think, oh, it's too heavy and I just want to put something else, I can easily go in and edit that edit that CSS file right in SharePoint Designer as well. So in my style library, I have my CSS file that I'm using. So here's my CSS file that I'm using, so I'll check it out, and then we'll edit this page. And so here at the top is my background. So I'm pointing at an image here, which is the body image that I'm using. But what I really want to do is just change that with a color. So we'll copy this little snippet of code here, and I'll just change the color. So now I'm going to be using this CSS color as opposed to an actual image. So I'll save that. I'll check this in, publishing this so it's available. And so hopefully, if this comes out all right. Now you can see if you look carefully down the side, it may be difficult to see, that background image is gone. I'm using the color for that background image, right? So now my page loads faster, and I chose a color that looks the same as the rest of the page. But now that background image is gone, and I just have the background color. So now that's interesting. So now what I've shown you is that you can create these master pages. You can tweak the master page layout by adding things to the master page. You can also change the CSS file and how that applies. But what's really interesting is now when I come down here to my site settings, and I go to my site theme, and I pick the theme that I want to apply. Let's go back to our delicious berry theme. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to apply this theme on top of my master page. So any guesses at what's going to happen? So I get this theme, and so there are some sections that are themed, like this theme color came up here. But in general, the master page and the CSS file are locked down. They are what they are, and they don't really honor the theme at all, right? But really our goal as designers should be to allow the users to have their own preferences in accordance with whatever design guidelines we have, and to make it, users love to set their wallpaper and tweak their layout and change their avatar. We should be able to have that same experience for SharePoint as well. And so here I have a theme, but the theme didn't apply to most of my page. But one of the things that we can do is that now in SharePoint, we have these hints. And so we can look at these hints. Let's check this out first. So I can say on this background, so here's this background color. Now what I'm saying is that if a theme is applied, I want you to honor the accent 1 color as the background for my CSS. In essence, overriding my CSS files with the user preferences set by the theme. Cool? Yeah? It will be if it works, right? So I've set my master page. I've said to that, let's go ahead and check it in. We'll publish this version. Now, one last thing I need to do here is that I've checked it in, but I need to get SharePoint to regenerate the merged CSS file with all of my theme changes and my CSS and all the stuff. So first thing I need to do is switch back to the default or another theme for a second. So we'll apply this. Then I can go back into it and reapply the theme that I want to apply. And now it's going through and it's merging my files with the theme files and figuring out how all of that interacts together. And then we can see now it's honored the background color of my CSS file with whatever the user chose for the theme files. Cool, huh? So as a designer, you really want to think about not only creating a great experience, but create a great experience that can be themed in a way that the users can interact and honor those themes. And when I say users, that could be the site collection administrator or some lower level person that owns that site could be creating these and applying these themes based upon maybe each team in your company has different colors and different org colors, right? So you want to have themes that can apply to those, but that flow nicely into your overall design. And now with SharePoint 2010 and themes, you can easily do that. All right, so cool. So the last piece I really want to talk about is Silverlight integration. Now, I could go on and on and on for days about Silverlight integration. There's tons of stuff about it. I've done a bunch of sessions. If you haven't seen them, you can watch the videos from PDC or some of the virtual conferences we've done. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that aspect. I do want to mention, though, that there are a number of ways that you can integrate Silverlight into your SharePoint. One is really this no-touch model where your Silverlight application doesn't live in SharePoint in any way. You're just basically using either an iframe or some mechanism like that to pull in your Silverlight application inside of SharePoint. That works really well. The second sort of level of effort is low touch, where your Silverlight application is in SharePoint. Maybe you've uploaded your ZAP file to a document library. Maybe it's in your master pages collection library. You know, it's someplace in SharePoint, and then you can reference that using the built-in Silverlight control that ships with SharePoint. So just copy your ZAP file up to a document library, add a new Silverlight web part, and point it to where you copied that ZAP file. That's the low touch. High touch is really, it's all about you. You're developing the web part yourself. You're doing all the work. You're creating the object tag. You're passing parameters. You're doing the whole works. And you get a lot of benefit from that, including the ability to do things like actually interact with real SharePoint data, use the client object model to call back to SharePoint. Silverlight has a native client object model for SharePoint, so you can use that object model to get data. Also, all SharePoint endpoints, all the lists are exposed as REST endpoints, so you can use the Entity Framework or Silverlight to do that. Or if you want to just go at the raw REST, you can do that as well. So that's interesting support. But one of the great things about Silverlight in SharePoint is you get this workflow. This workflow between the designer using Expression Blend and the developer using Visual Studio to really create these rich designs and these rich experiences for SharePoint in Blend using things like Sketchflow and other things, and then hand that design or that application off to the developer in Visual Studio, who can package everything up into a single WSP solution file that can be deployed to your farm, and he can add all the interactive code behind to make it all work with SharePoint and light up with SharePoint. All right. So I have a application here. Let's show you this application running first. So here's my Silverlight application. It's just a simple test application that has a number of controls on the page, radio buttons and list box and so on and so forth. Again, if I right-click on this, we can see that this is just a Silverlight application. And in fact, even though that SharePoint, due to the ship schedules and everything, is actually built on Silverlight 3, it all works with Silverlight 4, and in fact, here's the RC of Silverlight 4. It all just works because it's all backward compatible, right? So Silverlight 3 or 4 developing, it's all good, it all works. So if you want to do out-of-browser stuff with full trust support against SharePoint and Office, all of that works really well. But the thing about this application is that it may or may not look like our application. Many times you have a SharePoint application developed and designed in Blend and then dropped into SharePoint, and it doesn't look anything like your SharePoint. It doesn't have my beautiful yellow theme. It doesn't have, it doesn't look like it fits. It looks like it's just stuck on the site. And really the goal we want to have is that consistency across all of their applications, whether they're SharePoint applications or whether they're ASPX page type applications. But really, how do we do that? Well, so one of the things I've been working with the Silverlight team on is ability to dynamically load theme files on the fly inside of Silverlight. So in Silverlight 4, we've added this sort of implicit theming capability, right? Does everybody know what I'm talking about here? So in Silverlight 4, now you don't have to use the style manager and the implicit style manager and all that stuff you had to do in Silverlight 3. Now it's just built in. I just add a resource dictionary to my application, and if it defines a button, anything that looks like a button in my application will get this theme, implicit theming. But the problem is that I had to actually include that theme inside of my application. I want to be able to consume SharePoint themes inside of my Silverlight application. So just like I could create a theme file in PowerPoint, upload it, and have SharePoint do what it needs to do to make that look right with CSS, I want to have that same ability with Silverlight. So what we've done is I've worked with the Silverlight team, and we've created the theme base control. So the theme control existed today, or it existed in the beta version of Silverlight 4, as an abstract class, and then you had to create like the bubble cream theme and the red shiny theme, right? And those themes derive from the theme class. Well, now what we've done is we made the theme class be a concrete class that has a default theme that doesn't look like a theme. It looks like the system colors. But what's important is now there's a property on there called theme URI. And the theme URI, you can just point it at a theme file anywhere on the internet, and it will automatically go out, grab that file, download it, and apply the theme without you having to do any work. So that aspect is super interesting. But the other problem we have to solve is how do I get a THMX file or a SharePoint theme file into a Silverlight theme file? So what we've done is we've created a converter that will convert Office theme files into Silverlight themes. And so I'll just run this to start that conversion process. It just takes a second. But while we're looking at that, here is my application in Expression Blend. It's just a standard list box. If I look at the code for this, we can see that there's nothing really too significant about this code. It's just button. There's no styles defined here in any way. But what I've done is I'm able to now, in the toolkit, take the theme control, which is now a base class, right? Take that theme control and wrap it around anything in my application, in this case the grid. And then anything inside of that control will pick up the styles. So once I have this theme control set, all I need to do is set the property. So what I'll do is, if I go to the code behind, I just set the property to read the theme URI. And here in this case, I'm pointing it to my SharePoint site. And all I do is point it at a file on my SharePoint site called current Silverlight theme.xaml. And this is the XAML theme that we generate off of the THMX files. Is everybody with me so far? Good? And so I can see if I come out here to my style library, here's the theme file that we just generated just a minute ago. And so now what happens is that when I refresh this page, my Silverlight application automatically picks up that theme file and is themable in SharePoint with the exact same theme that's applied to my SharePoint site. Now here I made clown colors, but I mean, someone could do better. But the point is to have that ability for anything that's dropped into my SharePoint site to automatically pick up my SharePoint themes. Now all of my Silverlight applications look like they really belong inside of SharePoint. It's a huge benefit, right? And again, all the code, this was the entire code. So as a Silverlight developer, you don't really need to know anything about SharePoint themes. You just have to add that one line of code or set it in a property, and your Silverlight applications are theme aware. Now if you're not a SharePoint developer or you want to go tell your friends, we designed this feature so that it doesn't require SharePoint. Point it at anything on the internet and it'll go get it, right? If you have your own ASPX sites running Silverlight, just point the theme control to your own Silverlight themes, and you can dynamically create these themes that you can switch on the fly and at runtime, and it instantly picks up the theme and runs. And in fact, you can see that because this theme doesn't actually get applied until the control loads, and that's what you see here. So it can be changed or applied or reapplied at any time. All right. Cool. So with that, what we've really seen is that we've seen how to create themes, customize our SharePoint site with those themes, create custom master pages and page layouts, have those themes apply or override different elements within our CSS file, and we can see how we can easily create Silverlight applications that can participate into this whole theming model as well. So in the end result is we have this consistent user experience across all of our SharePoint applications that really adhere to our branding and our look and feel that users expect across their SharePoint sites. Now, we have a few other sessions going on here. One that I want to call out is one designing internet-facing websites with Elizabeth Olsen. And in fact, Elizabeth Olsen is the PM that owns the theming feature. So if you really like what you saw with the theming, that's all her stuff. So make sure you talk to her about it or tell her how much you liked it. We also have a great session later this afternoon on by Razorfish, where they're going to show you some more real-world examples on creating these rich Silverlight applications inside of SharePoint. So Razorfish will do some great stuff there. So definitely check those two out. And also, again, there may be time to still get a ticket at SharePoint Pro. So if you want to walk down to the Bellagio later this week, SharePoint Pro conference will be going on there. So we talked about the site master, so the starter master page. If you want to get started with kind of a blank master page, if you will, then the starter master is where you should start. So you can go and download that starter master. Also, some of the great examples that you want to see, if you want to kind of get a feel for what's possible, go to wsdemo.com. They have hundreds of examples to inspire you on actual real SharePoint sites that are out there in the wild today. And then finally, if you want to get started, the fastest way is to go and download the VHD file, which contains Office, SharePoint, and Visual Studio, and everything you need to really get started with doing everything you saw me do today. And I have a link to it on my blog. You could probably just Bing it and find it on the internet. But if you just go to my blog, you can find that as well and download. Definitely the easiest way to get started. Another thing that I've been working on for the last year or so are these training courses. So on Channel 9, we have these learning courses available on Channel 9. One of them is SharePoint. The best one is SharePoint. And there are others like Office and Silverlight and Visual Studio, right? And so you can go and download this one is actually a 5-day ILT course that's put on by Ted Patterson and Andrew Connell. So there's tons of high-def video, there's tons of hands-on labs, there's tons of demos. So if you want to learn about SharePoint and learn about Office development, then definitely go and watch those. And again, we have other ones for Cloud and Silverlight, but definitely check out the Learning Center. It's a great resource. Finally, we, on our team in DPE, we host the Metro program. If anybody here is interested in getting involved with Metro, which is sort of think of it like a TAP program. It's an early adopter program where you get early bits, we train people, we give you access to product support, and so on and so forth. If you think you're interested in that, definitely send us an email at metrorec@microsoft.com. Tell them you're interested in being in the SharePoint program, and we'll get you hooked up with what you need to do to get started. Finally, the Silverlight team has asked me to talk about this a little bit. Their Silverlight research team is looking for some people who want to participate and give feedback for future versions of Silverlight. So if this is something that you're interested in, definitely contact, the email is devur@microsoft.com, and tell them you're interested in doing some of the Silverlight research stuff and get involved with that. So with that, again, my name is Paul Stubbs. You can reach me at pstubbs@microsoft.com. I have an open email policy, so if you have any questions or you want to talk or you have any issues to talk about, just send me an email. You can find my blog at blogs.msdn or follow me on Twitter at Paul Stubbs. So with that, we have about 15 minutes left to do Q&A. So just step up to the mic since we're recording this and fire away. And if I can't answer your questions, I have Elizabeth is in the back. She can definitely answer your questions if I can't or if I can't make it up. So with that, please feel free to ask questions. And I'll be around afterwards if you wanted you want to talk more about this process. It's super exciting. We hope to release this whole kind of Silverlight theme toolkit around RTM timeframe. So we're working on getting this better and getting getting it really locked down, and then we will release all the source code for you to do this yourself. So with that, thank you. Please fill out your evals. They're super important for us to do better next time. So if you like what you saw, please fill those out. And please ask any questions. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the question's AJAX support. One of the great things about SharePoint is that they've got rid of tables. There's no more tables or very few tables in SharePoint. It's all divs. It's all standards compliant. It works across browsers, Firefox, Safari. Mostly AJAX based. So everything you see is more AJAX interactions. There's a dialog framework that just kind of pops up in a modal way. But it's all AJAX, CSS, div based. Tables are gone. And so it's a great standard platform to get started. If you know ASP.NET, jumping into SharePoint is trivial now because it's all so standards based. Yeah. Then there's other questions? Someone else? Yeah.
Back in your CSS document, it wasn't clear to me how your accent variable was bound to the background property.
Yeah. So the question is around how this is bound. And one of the interesting things here is that if I come here to the master page and I look at, so here are the core CSS files. And in here, there are all the sort of replacements or hints that will apply to the CSS. But it's really, there's a comment above the element that you want to have the hint apply to. And so you can see things like replace color, replace images. And so those will go through, and those things will be applied to the CSS that hint is in, if you will. Exactly. So if you want, like I say, if you want to see a full example of what is all possible, a good place to start is by looking at the core CSS files that ship. They'll contain all the elements that you want to, and you can see how those apply. So when you apply your theme, how do they affect the CSS, and do those on your own designs as well. Yep.
What can I tell our system administrator in school about security for file shares with SharePoint?
Well, so security and SharePoint. Security on SharePoint is fairly locked down. We have lots of really high-profile government agencies that use SharePoint security. We have lots of healthcare companies that use SharePoint. Also, SharePoint 2010 is all claims-based now. So if you want to, you can turn on claims, and it supports all the claims-based stuff. So you can create your own STSs and do all your own claims stuff. Supports SAML 2. So all of that stuff is super locked down. So it becomes very easy and very secure to do SharePoint in your documents with all of that security. So, yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so the question is around Section 508 of the military. It's a government document on how you should secure your sites.
They're not secure for accessibility.
Right, so Kaggle and stuff like that, right?
We use JAWS to register.
Yeah. So now that everything is CSS-based and table-based, most of that screen reader stuff and the accessibility goes way up with SharePoint now. So a lot of that stuff works, and the team is still working on making that better and documenting that. But that's happening right now. But just by the fact that we moved to table-based, div-based, CSS-based development and got rid of all the tables, it's much more accessible. Question? Is that mic on? Do we know? Is the question mic on? Okay, go ahead.
Is it working now? No.
No.
Okay, well, I'm a UX architect.
Yep.
And a lot of projects I run into is very aggressive timeline, but yet clients, customers want to customize the look and feel.
Yep.
So we've been doing a lot of 2010 rollouts, but most of my experience on customization is 2007. And I was wondering if there are any improvements on the structure of CSS that gets generated by default in 2010 that was originally not available in 2007.
Yeah.
Chrome.
Yeah. So the question is around CSS. Is the CSS story in SharePoint 2010 coherent this time? And the answer is yes. The CSS story is much improved. It's much, much easier to figure out what's going on with the CSS and to design your own CSS files. You can, like I say, you saw in mine how easy it was to create that CSS file that I had. And I'm definitely not a CSS expert by any means. But it was very easy to get up to speed with that and to create those CSS files. And you'll find that the order and the way that the CSS flows through SharePoint is much more logical now than it was in 2007. So, yeah. So the question is there a list on how those themes, I don't think we have that documented yet on how the theme colors apply to the CSS pages throughout the master pages. But again, you'll see those here. So if you want to look, they'd be here. But that is something we should talk to the documentation team, see if they have those.
Yeah, we're working on getting that documentation out. We don't have it yet, but we are planning to get it around the RTM timeframe.
Yeah. But again, you can look here and see that, oh, my menu toolbar picks up light 2 and light 1. And you can see that for now. But yeah, the docs are coming. Was there a question here? Yeah.
So in the Silverlight thing, from converting from the SharePoint to THMX,
Yeah.
how would that play with it if you already have custom looking fields or Silverlight application? Colors, or is that completely?
Well, so the question is kind of how does the Silverlight theme stuff work? And in this example, what we're working on right now is that SharePoint just has the 16 colors and 2 fonts in the theme that it uses. But in a theme file, you can do so much more. There's a lot more stuff in a theme file that's not really being surfaced by SharePoint. We hope to try to pull that information out of the theme file and apply that to our Silverlight themes. But the way we're doing it basically is we have a Silverlight theme template that we just take a standard Silverlight theme and we mark it up with tokens, and then we rip through the theme file, and then we just merge the two by doing basically token replacement throughout our theme file. So you could easily create your own theme templates and then map it to whatever mapping you want to very easily. In this case, my theme that I've done, I can show you this real quick here. So let's bring this up here. So if I go to my style library here, so here's my theme template file. So you can see this is all I'm doing is I have a standard theme file, and I just pick out my tokens out of my theme file and I map them. In this case, I ripped out all the template stuff just to keep it simple and so easy to explain. But you could make these actual theme as complicated as you want to change the actual look and feel of the buttons. Like right now, I'm just monkeying with the colors, but in templates, you can really change the way the color, the control is. And so anything you can do there, you can just rip down through and replace and map those however you want to very easily. And we hope to get more detail and complex, and that's what we're working on right now to do. But for this demo, I tore all that out to make it easy to understand. Yep. Yeah. So the question is, should we use it? How should we use this, really, right? I don't think we've thought about it enough and have enough sort of feedback to come up with that guidance yet. It'd be interesting to hear, your feedback on, you guys are the design experts, what you think should be the right way to do that. I think initially that would be the way to do. I would have CSS do most of the work, and then carefully choose the places that I think it's okay for users to override and have some customization in things that they want to. I think like background, and if there are core pieces of my design that if the user changes this, it'll just be weird. Those are the places you want to keep locked down. But I think places like background and those type of things, those are the places where you want to honor the theme color and make that very easy to switch your theme on the fly for either cranking out different theme sites. You have a red, a blue, a yellow theme site, and or to have just the users be able to create their own whimsical themes for their My sites, for example. Yeah.
Possibly following on that point, I'm considering an architecture where I have kind of a hybrid environment where I'm doing MVC, Visual Studio development, and I'm going to leverage some of the BI features during SharePoint.
Yep.
2010. It seems if I would have
Yeah.
Or if you have other recommended best practices in that area.
So let me understand. So you have just a standard ASP.NET site, and you have some SharePoint stuff and a SharePoint site, and how do you make those two consistent?
Well, I need to be able to leverage the
Yeah.
MIX tools and have a consistent design throughout. Like shared CSS might help.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can talk about maybe offline. Maybe we'll brainstorm a little bit with Elizabeth about how to do that. I mean, obviously, definitely a hack would be you can go into SharePoint Designer and grab the theme, but is that the right way? Probably not, right? I mean, maybe there's more elegant ways to do that, but that's an interesting problem to think about. All right, we have like a couple minutes left. One more question, anybody? Yep.
So is it possible to disable that ribbon control for particular themes? Some of our clients are going to want to create them and not want to.
Can you disable the ribbon, the theme?
So you want to get rid of them entirely, or do you want to know just not be able to change the theme? Sure, you can use a custom action to remove that entirely.
Yeah. So you can do that, but I mean, you saw here on this one, it's not totally super locked down. Like this one, normally when you turn on page publishing, you get a link here for your master pages, but the link's not here on this team site because it didn't start off as a publishing page. But since I know what the actual ASPX page to change the master pages are, if I was a smart user, I could theoretically go to that theme file. So you have to make sure you lock that down as well. All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, attend the talk this afternoon, and be sure to attend Elizabeth's talk on Wednesday. Thank you.